We have a old man that doesn't know what the he's doing for a president.
That's some projection, isn't it? Who are you to tell Joe Biden he doesn't know what he's doing when you've never had a job, you've never had to pay a bill in your life, you can't even make your own food. It's pathetic. Like, come on, you can't even bathe yourself. How hard is that? Nestled in the enchanted woods of Ohio stands the mighty kingdom of Akron. Under the benevolent tutelage of the almighty King Marty, this kingdom has grown and prospered to new heights. But beneath the dark, dingy sewers of Old Lloyd, there lives a decrepit, scab-laden goblin. So vile, so evil, he stalks local kindergartens and daycare centres, seeking out young ones to coerce. Join our crusade to expunge the realm of all goblins and predators once and for all. G'day mates, it's Mike here. I recently saw this series of videos he did talking about, well, he's obviously just trying to deflect his problems, you know, trying to make himself look good. To me, like, because I'm obsessed with history and geopolitics and all that. Obviously, I don't know everything about it, but just watching this video just made me really want to do a response to it. So, this is it. This is it. But anyway, look at him. Look at him. You know, he's got less hair than my dad, and my dad's like twice his f***ing age. Wonder what that whirring sound is. Look at him.
What's up, Twitter?
Hello. Hello.
And I'm sure this will be on YouTube.
Yep.
Before very long.
Yep, it is.
But
Gotta pick them scabs.
if you are watching this on YouTube by the time this goes up, what's up to everybody on YouTube?
Hello. Boy.
So today I was scrolling through. I was scrolling through on TV to see.
So you were just sitting in the attic as usual. Actually, no, you weren't. You were probably down in the living room with Sally and Ed. You know, the grandmother, the adopted mother that you beat the shit out of.
You know what was on. I'm just browsing through channels.
Cool.
And
Wonder
I
if there
saw
was any lolly on, like the shit that you'd like. Pedo.
the most disturbing thing that I've ever seen.
One of the comments, I was gonna make this joke, but one of the comments said something along the lines of the TV turned off and he saw his reflection in the. I mean, that is pretty terrifying. You know, usually I don't like making fun of people's looks, but I take exception to people like Cyraxx because of just how vile of a human being he is.
In my life. Yes, the video was from like 2 weeks ago.
That's not very long ago. Why would you say it? Why would you say that as something that's lenient towards the video itself? Why? 2 weeks is not that long. It's usually the amount of time you have to give notice for if you're leaving a job. Not like you'd know that. You've never had a job.
But it's still one of the most up things I've ever seen.
Sip that sludge, baby boy.
Which is a young kid. No more to be, I'd say, than 17, 18 years old.
Yeah, about the age range of the girls that you're attracted to. Oh, wait, no, that's too old for you.
I'm not a f***ing Look up the technical term, bitch. I would be considered a hemophile, which, by all technical terms, is not a f***ing lie. Being drug off by the Ukraine military, being forced to fight.
Look, usually I'm not pro-conscription, you know, I don't like being forced to fight, but I have to defend the Ukrainians here. This is a war that they're fighting that they didn't ask for. They didn't ask to be invaded by Russia. This is a war that they're fighting for their sovereignty. Have you ever heard of the War of the Triple Alliance? So, basically, what the war was, it was like the Paraguayans against two big South American nations and Uruguay. They lost like 90% of their male population or something along those lines. You know, I don't even think they've still recovered from that war, and it was like over 150 years ago. But it got so desperate towards the end that their leader, I think his name was Francisco Solano Lopez, literally, he went out into the whatever big city he had control of, you know, because they took control of like the capital, the Brazilians and the Argentines. He went out there looking for men, you know, any able-bodied male. And he was like waving his pistol around, you know, holding men at gunpoint to get them to fight. Like, that's not something you'd normally do if you didn't need to do it. Usually, countries don't tend to force little boys and stuff, you know, younglings and old people into the battlefields unless they're desperate. And if you knew anything about this conflict, you'd know that the Ukrainians are getting desperate. They're running out of manpower. It's the same thing the Germans did towards the end of the Second World War. They started recruiting kids and old people because they had no other choice, you know? And this is what's happening now, obviously not on the same scale. But yeah, so I have to defend the Ukrainians at this point. They need as many people as possible. Is it still a bad thing that they're doing? Yes. But they have a reason for it. Sometimes you have to do things that are unethical in order to survive. You might know that soon when Sally pops off.
This kid was literally being ripped away from his family.
It's sad, but they have to do it.
In order to be forced to fight in a war that he did not want to fight.
Yeah, well, neither did the Ukrainian government. They didn't want to fight the war either, but they have to. They need to preserve their sovereignty. Have you seen all the massacres that the Russians have committed against the Ukrainians? Do you even know anything about the history of Ukraine and Russia? Like, for example, when did Ukraine become independent from the Soviet Union, you know? Or also, how do you know the shit's not fake, you know? Because, well, you might have seen it on TV, but if you saw it on X, a huge portion of X's traffic is just Russian bots. There's a video called Russians Pretending to be Americans. That's just like one different point of view, but, you know, it's kind of f***ed up because it gets to the point where it's like every post you see that has views that you don't like, or that, you know, for me it's like views that are overly right-wing or overly like anti-progressive or whatever. It's gotten to that point where it's like you assume that they're just a Russian bot, and that's f***ed up because I want to know for certain who the real people are, you know.
From his little sister, his little brother, and both of his parents. Right there in front of him.
Didn't you want to join the military one day? Because of your stepdad who disowned you? Because you're an asshole?
Bring your ass over here, old man! All you are is a disgrace to the U.S. military! You're a poor excuse for a human being!
Is that a paint palette there to his left? Oh, no, to his right? Another thing as well, I'm not gonna be like, there's gonna be like some parts of this video where I sound like I'm advocating for countries like the DPRK and all that. Just want to say that I don't advocate for them. I'm just looking at certain historical situations from like both points of view as well, because what Goblin Boy fails to realize here is oftentimes history is more complicated than you think. And I'm just gonna say I don't completely agree with the Ukrainians. I don't, you know, agree 100% with their ideology, their mindset, all that sort of stuff. But I do understand their struggle for independence. I do understand that.
And all I have to say is this.
What do you have to say?
The world needs to lay its weapons down.
If only it was that simple.
Every single country in the world needs to lay its weapons down, including the US.
It's never gonna happen though. It's never gonna happen. There's always gonna be paranoia, there's always gonna be disunity, there's always gonna be some sort of conflict somewhere, even with nukes. Even with nukes. In fact, the only reason there hasn't been more world wars is because of mutually assured destruction, which comes from nuclear weaponry.
Including Russia, including China, including North and South Korea. We all need to
North and
stop
South.
fighting amongst each other.
Hey. His grandma. His grandma. His grandma. And you just love it, you know, a guy trying to play diplomat, and then his grandma says, "Come down here a minute. Can you please fold your dirty laundry?" Anywho, let's watch the next one. What's that sound? Is that like a fan or something?
What is Twitter?
Look at those keyboards.
I do apologize for that interruption.
And look at that slob on his beard. Look at it. Look, look, look.
But
Also, can you please put some cream on those scabs? I mean, I'm susceptible to head scabs as well, but not on that level. Maybe you should put that American flag bandana back on or some shit, you know? Or like, I don't know, I don't know, glue some leather or something on it.
like I was saying in my last video,
Bitch.
the world needs to lay its weapons the down.
I mean, kind of. I can advocate for, you know, world peace and international cooperation, but it's not that simple because there are some resources that are really finite, you know, some rare resources that multiple nations might need, but only certain nations can have or are in control of that. And for some wars, it gets to the point where it's kind of like with how the Japanese entered into World War II. Part of the reason why they attacked Pearl Harbor was because of the Americans putting an oil embargo on them. Still, I hate the Japanese Empire, of course. What they did in China is absolutely fucking disgusting. But that's kind of like a half explanation. Like, I think, part of me thinks if the Americans hadn't have cut the oil and all the resources, then the Japanese wouldn't have attacked. Does that mean America's in the wrong? No. I hate American imperialism just as much as everyone else, but I think in this circumstance they were completely in the right. Anywho, yeah, and that's the thing. Sometimes there are some nations that'll just do super nasty things as well.
The world is getting greedy.
It's been greedy for ages.
We have a old man that doesn't know what the he's doing for a president.
That's some projection, isn't it? Like, who are you to tell Joe Biden he doesn't know what he's doing when you've never had a job, you've never had to pay a bill in your life, you've never, you know, you can't even make your own food. It's pathetic. Like, come on, you can't even bathe yourself. How hard is that? Come on.
We have a psychopath running Russia.
I will kind of agree with that. But if you look at it, you know, a lot of situations can be sculpted to make the opposing side look like a victim. Like, if you look at the history of Russia, they used to control so much more. But because of, I would say it's because of, like, the revisionist policies of Mikhail Gorbachev and the way he f***ed it up there, Russia lost, like, a super lot of territory. I mean, if you look at the treaty, it makes the Treaty of Versailles look like nothing. They used to border Poland, Slovakia, Romania, even countries like Iran as well, and what did I say, Afghanistan? Yeah, Afghanistan. But now it's like, they're so much smaller. They're still the largest country in the world. But yeah, and also, NATO has been expanding, not only in the former Warsaw Pact satellite states, but in countries that were once part of Russia, like the Baltic states. So from this point of view, from the Russian point of view, the invasion of Ukraine is a way of trying to get them to secure their own personal sovereignty against the expansionism of NATO. Do I like the Russian government? No. I don't like them at all. They've screwed up everything.
We have an evil dictator psycho running North Korea.
Okay. I have to cut Kim Jong-un a little bit of slack here. I do think he's a tyrant and all that, but I don't think it's as simple as just saying that he's an evil, like, psychopath or whatever. Because, you know, North Korea, they could have easily adopted market socialism by now, like China did, like Vietnam, like, I don't know, Laos. But they chose not to. And I ask myself, why is that? Because I feel like if they did, they could easily open up and they could easily, you know, ease the tension. But I feel like they're not doing that out of principle, you know, out of principle. They feel like that's the best course of action for their country. I still think North Korea is a super oppressive authoritarian regime, but I don't think it's as simple as saying they're just a psychopath, you know. They might be misguided, they might be delusional, and some of them might be psychopathic, but I don't think it's just overgeneralized like that.
Hiding its people from the world.
Actually, it's pretty much the other way. Well, not pretty much the other way around, but a lot of it is because of the US, the sanctions that the US put on North Korea. That's part of the reason why North Korea is so isolated, is because of all the actions of the Americans. I'd say it's more the Americans' fault in that regard. Still, North Korea has a huge part to play in that, their government as well, you know. But I think a lot of it has to do with American imperialism. In fact, Hakeem did a video recently about why North Korea hates the US. I haven't watched it yet, but I think it'd probably say something along the lines of that. And also, you gotta remember, South Korea wasn't the perfect country either. I mean, it's much better now, but I still think it's a hole. I'll explain a little bit later, because he's going to talk more about North Korea.
Mind you, these people in North Korea, they don't know about the outside world.
Yes, they do. That's why there's some defectors. You really think they can just suppress information like that? You know, you see in plenty of, like, North Korea documentaries, you know, Western propaganda or whatever. I think that that's the case to an extent. To an extent. I think, as I said, it's still a very repressive, you know, dictatorship or whatever, but I think a lot of, well, not a lot actually, some of what is said is over-exaggerated. But a lot of them actually show people, like, using, like, underground, like, almost like a black market to, like, acquire, you know, like, American films, or to use the internet or something like that. I don't know enough about what life is like in North Korea, neither does Raxo though, but I think a fair portion of them, of the Korean people, would probably also be scared of, like, the South Korea of the past, or they might be brainwashed into thinking that South Korea today is still like the South Korea under Syngman Rhee, and I'll get to that a little bit later.
They don't know about modern technology.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
And these people are being cut off from the world.
Yeah, by the Americans. By the Americans. Well, 60-70% the Americans anyway.
And what I don't understand, why are we not focusing on North Korea and getting those people the out of there?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's because they have the 4th largest army in the world. Maybe it's because they have the backing of 2 major world powers in Russia and China. Maybe it's because they have their own nuclear missiles that can strike the United States. Did you ever think about that, Goblin Boy? And it's another thing with, like, fanaticism as well, you know, like, a lot of people would probably assume that the North Koreans are, like, brainwashed and fanatical. Let's just make that assumption for a second. What comes with that is this whole idea of, like, fighting to the death, never surrendering. You see it in World War II as well, not only on the German side, but on the Soviets as well. And with that comes a huge amount of unnecessary destruction. I mean, just look at how many Germans and Russians died in the war. It was like 27 million Soviets and like 9 million or something Germans, which is insane. But, you know, how do we know that those kind of numbers couldn't happen on the Korean Peninsula as well?
That's what I don't understand.
Because you're an idiot.
Why are we not focusing on North Korea and freeing the people of North Korea from that fucking psycho Kim Jong-un?
Again, it's not as complicated to say that someone is just like a psychopath or not, you know. I'm sure there's some good virtues, I guess. I don't know. But still, I do think no matter how much bad Kim Jong-un has done, he's still done a lot more good than Cyraxx will ever do in his life. And that is a testament to how up you are, Chance. See, I mean, at least Kim Jong-un's not a PDF. At least Kim Jong-un didn't beat his grandmother. At least Kim Jong-un didn't shove a stylus up his and try to manipulate people by pretending to be on the verge of taking his own life. Don't get me wrong, Kim Jong-un's still a tyrant, but at least he's actually done something.
Why are we not wiping out the bad guys?
Because it's not that simple, Chance. You think we live in Team America or some shit? A superhero movie? The fucking Interview? You really think it's that simple? And that's kind of ironic, isn't it? That you say, why aren't we focusing on North Korea? When at first you say, oh, let's lay down our weapons. It's like, you're kind of contradicting yourself a bit there, Goblin.
And putting good people in.
Yeah, but how do you define good? I mean, you're a Trump supporter, right? You really think he's a good person?
Let me tell you, when I saw that kid being yanked away by those people of the Ukrainian military...
Ooh, his eyes are shut. His eyes are shut, meaning Goblin lies.
My stomach sank.
No, it didn't, because your eyes are shut. You're lying, Chance.
This war for power is why we're constantly at war.
Oh my god. What, you think this is 1984 now, do you? If you look at history, he is half right about this. It's like always a struggle for power and whatnot. But if you're looking at history now, the majority of wars that are being fought today, if you don't count the Ukraine war, pretty much all of them are just either civil wars or small scale like guerrilla warfare, which is pretty much like civil wars. Most of the big powers, they're not actually like at war with anyone. Like I'd say Australia is at peace at the moment, for example.
This needs to stop.
Yeah, and instead we need to attack North Korea.
Fighting amongst each other needs to stop.
Yes, let's attack North Korea instead.
We need to stop focusing on how different we are from each other and start focusing on how alike we are.
Yes, we're all just like you, Chance. We all beat our grandmothers. We all send dick pics to underage girls or people we think are underage girls. It really doesn't make a difference. We all like being deviant degenerates who live in our attics, picking and flicking scabs, leaving Doritos bags out in the back, you know, letting mice just infest the house, not giving any shit about any sort of proper hygiene, not ever bothering trying to be a productive citizen in society by either getting a job or actually being good at what we're doing. Oh yeah, by the way, you're a talentless Chance. You are a talentless
That's what we need to do.
bitch!
But instead, everybody's worried about this and worried about that. Oh, this country's got nukes, so we gotta worry about them.
You know why nukes are so bad? It's because they can inflict hundreds of thousands, if not millions of deaths with a snap of a finger. Not only that, they destroy the environment with radiation. So, you know, I think it's kind of understandable why governments might be concerned that other countries would get access to nuclear weapons. Did you ever think about that, Goblin?
How about this? Here's an idea. How about we all lay down our nukes, we sit the down, we smoke it,
Yeah, and we
we chill the out. How about that?
You know, for all your acting like you're Mr. Diplomacy, you're really good at interacting with people like Marty, like Tony the Black Dragon.
The stories. I've heard the stories, and you know what? You're delusional. You are delusional. You said you were tricked. No, fam, you were not tricked. You did it because you were desperate for a girl. That's why you...
I know exactly the perfect way you can resolve all your issues, all the world's problems, all this war. It's by doing this. Part of being diplomatic is being able to see the world through more than just one lens. Being able to critically reflect on yourself and your actions as an individual. It's not trying to justify what you've done or why you do it. You know, you can believe whether you're in the right or in the wrong all you want, but you've got to have the capability to be able to critically reflect on yourself. Have you ever done that, Cyraxx? Just you saying, oh, I've made my mistakes, without explaining what the mistakes are, that's not taking accountability. Now, if you wanted to actually take accountability, you wouldn't say something like this.
You laid hands on your grandmother?
12 years ago, but here's the thing, dude. Here's the difference between me and you.
Your
bro.
grandmother.
Nah, here's the difference between me and you, Thump. I got help.
The woman who raised you.
And raises him to this day.
But guess what? I got help, Thump. You didn't do shit. What are you doing?
You don't say like that, and you come across as really defensive when you say that as well.
How about we all sit the down, we come to an agreement that no one attacks anybody.
That worked in the past, didn't it? And plus another thing though, leaders change. There are no one individual rules forever.
And we'll make a peace treaty between every leader in the world.
What do you think the United Nations is, you dumb f***? That is an attempt at that! You f***wit!
You would think after 2 world wars, an Iraq war,
which wasn't that big. It was only big in the aftermath, you know, with the guerrilla fighting and all the civilian deaths. Like, that was the most up part about it, was the post-war. It's like the invasion of Poland as well. The actual fighting was like minimum compared to the occupation phase. It's the same thing with the former Yugoslavia as well. And I think Greece too. It's mostly from the occupation. He's trying to think.
You would think in a Cold War,
which wasn't actually a war. There were plenty of times like the SALT agreements where the Americans and the Soviets actually tried to even be like really friendly with each other. But yeah, the Cold War wasn't a war. That's why it's called the Cold War. There were some smaller conflicts like Korea, Vietnam. Like, I'd say Korea was probably the worst of the wars. Like, the closest they came to actually like going to war with each other, bar the Cuban Missile Crisis.
You would think that we would have learned by now.
And you think after all these years of this senseless struggle that you've had against the trolls or whatever, and Marty and whatnot, you think you'd learned your lesson too by getting off the internet. But no, you have to keep coming on, keep ranting and raving and raxing out, going on Marty's panels. I think he's stopped that now though. He's kind of come to his senses a little bit, but it's taken, come on, chance. And you'd think after the first time you sent a goblin peen pic to someone who you thought was underage, you think he would have learnt not to do that again. And that's another way you don't take any accountability. You keep denying that you're a you keep denying that, but yet you keep doing the same shit over and over and over again, and you wonder why people are so pissed off with you. And you think after all the times you rage at people, all the times you call them N-word boys, hook-nosed K-words, all that sort of stuff, you think you would have learnt maybe that's not how you sway people to your cause? He's stupid, isn't he?
We are our own worst enemies.
I will kind of agree with him on that. We are a flawed species.
The enemy isn't Russia. The enemy isn't China. The enemy isn't North Korea.
Then why did you advocate for attacking North Korea then, if they're not the enemy?
The enemy isn't this country or that country. No. Everybody.
Here's a bit of a truth bomb for you, Chance. Diplomacy isn't about principles. It isn't about fighting for global freedom or the global, order or whatever, like, global communism from like the Soviet perspective or whatever. Being diplomatic is all about getting what your country wants and needs. It's about expanding the country's national interest. And that's all this conflict in Ukraine really is. It's basically the climax of the clash between American interests internationally and Russian interests internationally. That's what it is. There is no caring about the freedoms of the Ukrainians. There is no trying to eradicate Nazism in there. It's all about who has control of Ukraine, the West or the East. It was the same thing with the Korean War, with the Vietnam War, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, the American invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan. All those wars were fought to protect national interest. It wasn't for principles, it wasn't for anything like that. At the end of the day, most governments are self-centered, are greedy. Most of them want to rule the world. They probably can't, except maybe America or China, but that's just the truth of the matter.
We as a collective is a danger to ourselves.
I will agree with that.
We are all one people. We are all a human
What are you
race.
talking about? You're not a human, you're a freaking goblin.
And if we have any chance of surviving the human race.
Oh, his grandma called him again. You gotta remember as well, a country and their government acts based on the circumstances that they're in. Based on how many resources they have, how their neighbors treat them, the type of government they have, their geographical situation as well. That's another thing with why Russia invaded Ukraine. I think they also wanted to have control. They wanted to have control of the Ukrainian food bowl. They also want to have control of a border that's not only smaller, but more easier to protect, and that comes from the Carpathian Mountains. I will watch this video, but I'll do it a bit later. And we're back, like a month and a half later. Now, if you're a devout follower of the Raxiverse, you'll know that recently he shat himself on stream.
Oh God.
Baby got the diarrhea.
Yeah, this is the final video. It's called We Are Offing Ourselves. I don't know why he thought that was a good name idea, because let's be real. Saying that in the title, it's just begging for your video to be age restricted. Quick shout out to N-Word Boy for archiving stuff. He's been a bit inactive on the archival front recently, but still, shout out to him. He's a legend for keeping all this stuff.
And I know I said
Or are you gonna let your pizza head do the talking?
that I wasn't gonna be on here for about a year.
Pepperoni pizza head, like the same pepperoni that he used to jack off with.
Not let this go.
But what are you gonna do about it? You're not the leader of the US. You're not president. There's nothing you can do. It's like these dumb on social media that are like tweeting stop war and all that. All they're doing is trying to sound like they've got the moral high ground. They don't really care. But seriously though, you making these stupid tweets and signing these dumbass petitions doesn't do shit. What we need is actual action, actually pressuring our governments to take proper action.
My gut told me that I needed to speak on this.
No, you're just trying to make yourself look good. That's all you're doing. Nobody's falling for it because you are vile. You are disgusting. We all know what you did to Blind Billy. We all know the times you got busted. The times you got busted sending inappropriate pictures to people you thought were underage. We know about all the times you've been on Marty's panel, yelling, screaming, cussing him out, calling him the N-word, calling him the K-word, whipping out your dick. We know about all of that. It's so far gone, it's not funny. You're 34 years old, you've got like an IQ of probably like 43, I don't know. You're in your grandma's attic all day, screaming, carrying on, choking a chicken, trying to DM minors. You've never had a job, you never take any responsibility for your life, you don't bathe, you don't shower, because it would probably sting too much because of all those scabs on your head. You don't do any work, your music sucks, your artwork is stolen, so is your music, your videography work is just absolute trash. What's the best thing for you to do, I think? I think what the best thing to do is to get off the internet, try getting a job, though fat chance of that ever happening, let's be honest. I do agree that sometimes you do in life, you do need to take a step back. You do need to just gain your composure, think about your circumstances, look at it from a bird's eye point of view. But I think that applies the most is you!
Huh? How are we preserving human life? How are we preserving the human...
How many times have you told people to go off themselves? Come on, how many times have you told people that you were gonna murder them? A lot. And I don't care what excuse you have, it's unacceptable to murder innocent civilians. And it's unacceptable to threaten murder on them as well.
Get rid of every single weapon that we have.
But if we do that, people will start manufacturing more. And also, you don't forget about the power vacuum that this could cause, leading to more wars, more fighting. And plus, humans have the capacity to kill people without weapons. If you didn't know, without advanced weapons like guns or whatever. Anything can be a weapon. Just look in the kitchen, for example, knives. Like, what, you expect us not to live with knives? How are you going to cut your food? I suppose you don't need knives to eat Hot Pockets.
Each other. I've lost friends that took their own lives after retiring from the military.
He's lying. Come on, Chance. Eyes closed means goblin lies.
Or better yet, why are we not focusing our power
on North Korea, I'm guessing he's gonna say.
On freeing the people of North Korea that they are holding captive behind their walls.
Hey, Chance. I gotta say this. I forgot to say this in the last recording, but have you ever heard of the Bodo League massacre? It happened during the Korean War, I believe, where 200,000 political opponents, or around about that much, would kill... You know who the perpetrator of that massacre was? It was the South under Syngman Rhee. It wasn't the only massacre that happened too. There were ones like the Ganghwa massacre as well, but the Bodo League one stands out, numbers-wise. Point I'm saying is, it's never black and white. While South Korea has significantly advanced and reformed since then, thank goodness, I think the spectres of that still most likely haunt the people of North Korea. And I'm about 80-90% sure that the government of North Korea would be using massacres such as the Bodo League massacre as tools for propaganda, saying that if we reunify under the South, they will commit more and worse massacres like the Bodo League massacre. And you could say something like, oh, that happened like 75 years ago or something like that, but the Holocaust didn't happen too much before that, and the Germans still feel like guilt about that, and rightfully so. Do I think it's justification for North Korea being so totalitarian and isolated? No. I think it's a genuine concern that they'd have for US imperialism, but that doesn't justify their own wrongdoings.
Why are we not going after Kim Jong-un?
You know, America has actually tried to stage coups in countries that weren't aligned with them. Venezuela is one of the more recent examples I can think of. It's not easy overthrowing a government, assuming that they would be able to successfully overthrow the government. Like, look at examples in Iraq and Libya. Who's to say that chaos and instability and more warfare wouldn't erupt?
The US claims that we stand for those that can't defend themselves, but yet...
No, they don't. They're just pretending. It's all propaganda, Chance. Look at the inequality problem in the US. Look at the oligarchy problem. Look at all the tyrannical dictators that they have supported in the past. There was the Pakistani dictator during the Bowler cyclone. There was Fulgencio Batista, Augusto Pinochet, Nong Dim Dien, Syngman Rhee, for example, and all the other South Korean dictators. There was the Shah of Iran before the Islamic Revolution happened. There was the coup they did in Guatemala because they wanted to actually be able to make a decent amount of money off their bananas, but no, the corporations didn't want that, did they? I I think they supported Papa Dr. Valier. Oh yeah, and then there was, I think it was Suharto in Indonesia. That was another US-supported dictator. Oh yeah, Chiang Kai-shek as well.
We need people like Donald Trump in office instead of sleepy Joe Biden.
Yes, we need orange-skinned wit in office who the COVID response, leading to the deaths of millions of Americans. Need a guy who almost started a war with Iran, who comes across as a hardline nationalist. Yeah, we need him in office, who's only doing what he's doing for selfish gain. Like, he doesn't give a anymore. I don't think he ever did. He's just a misguided numbskull. His diplomacy, it's the big problem with it is he's too isolationist. He doesn't seem to realize that globalization is pretty much the way that America uses to project its power onto other countries, and that's how you retain the peace. I mean, it's not a very good peace, I'll be honest. I don't like American imperialism. I'd rather our country be able to do what we need to do to prosper without having to worry about American intervention.
It makes me ashamed to say that I'm a US citizen.
I'm glad you're not Australian, honestly. And if anything, the US is ashamed that you are a citizen of it. I mean, I'm ashamed to be living on the same planet as you. Like, why don't you just go back to Mordor or Middle Earth or some you know, go back to Skyrim. You don't belong here. You're a goblin, not a human.
At least he looked Kim Jong-un in the face and said, "We're coming for you and we're saving your people."
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. In fact, I'm pretty sure Trump was going to open up to North Korea on the promise of like denuclearization. In fact, he said he somewhat admired Kim Jong-un.
Why? Well, why do you want so much power? So you can be the bigger, better army?
I think it's more of a immortality project kind of thing. You want to have a page in the history books dedicated to yourself. In fact, I think that's why everyone does what they do, is because they know at the end of the day they're going to die, and they don't want their legacy to only last like a couple of years and then to be forgotten in the annals of history. How do you think Hitler wanted his legacy to be? Do you think he wanted it to be this, the genocidal maniac who murdered a bunch of Jews for no reason and started the most destructive war in the history of humanity? Or do you think Hitler wanted to be remembered as the savior of Germany, the man who brought them back from the brink of destruction and humiliation to reassert their position as the global hegemon? And Stalin, for example, do you think he wanted to be remembered for the Holodomor or for the KGB or the purges? No, I think Stalin would have wanted to be remembered as the guy who lifted the Russian people out of poverty and illiteracy, the guy who spread the revolution, who was pivotal in the victory against the Germans, who stood up to the imperialists or whatever. We don't always get that though. We don't always get how we want to be remembered as. You should be ashamed of who you are, of what you've done, the nasty shit that you've done, the fact that you're 30 years old and you're still in that attic doing nothing with your life, not even taking care of yourself. It's pathetic. You know, you like to talk about how we should be focused on how similar we are, yet the amount of times you call people names based on that they can't control, like how many times have you called people the N-word? Like, that is disgusting, Chance. You wonder why so many people hate you. And then there's the K-word as well, so not only are you a racist, you're an anti-Semite. Like, how do you expect unity when you're insulting people for the color of their skin or their ethnicity?